I am not a mindfulness expert, but I can talk to you about my own mindfulness practice, as well as the knowledge that I've gained through training to be a mindfulness teacher for children. So just to start with, what is mindfulness? And hopefully we're going to introduce you to what it is and why it's beneficial, why it can be beneficial, and how you can implement it into your daily practice. So it involves training our attention to experience the present moment with greater curiosity and kindness. And the curiosity and kindness is one of the most important aspects of it. It's about understanding why and how we feel the way we do, and accepting that we might sometimes feel worried or anxious or stressed. It helps us to not only appreciate what's going well, but to respond more skillfully in the here and now to life's inevitable challenges. It's about being able to deal with the struggles of life, as well as to pay attention to the things in life that make us happy and content. I'll pass over to Chris to just talk a little bit about the course that we teach at BSM.
Okay, good morning, everybody. What I would like to do, first of all, is just walk you through a little bit of the journey that the British School has been on over the last couple of years. And I think we're conscious. We have a commitment to what we will call a holistic education. And what we're looking for is to develop students with the tools to go out into society, who are self-aware, who can self-regulate in that sense. And we were delighted over the summer to send 3 members of staff on Mindfulness in Schools courses, which gives us a taught curriculum, which we're rolling out to our students, but we're also hoping that it will become a real community focus. So as well as delivering this curriculum to our students, what we're looking to do is to engage staff and to engage parents in a shared set of values. And what you'll see here is the kind of 9 key lessons that we deliver as part of our core curriculum. And if I can just touch on 3 things that I would want you to take away from this slide is very much the first 2. We spend a lot of time talking with our students about the idea of the mind and the mind as a muscle. And like any muscle, muscles require training. And we talk to our students how they spend lots and lots of time using their mind to learn, but maybe we haven't always introduced them to the nature of the mind. And therefore, through seeking to understand the mind, we're hoping that students will become not only global citizens, but also more effective learners. One of the keys that Athena touched on in the middle 3 slides is very much this idea of being in the present moment and holding moments in awareness, non-judgmentally. And BSM is a very busy school, and we think that idea just to kind of drop and to hold moments in awareness is a really important skill for our students. In terms of the bottom 3 slides, I would take in the idea that mindfulness is often presented as a solution to depression or stress or anxiety or chronic pain, and it certainly achieves that. However, we would also say, in the words of the course, it also helps us to take in the good, to really appreciate, the richness and the joys of all human experience. So it's for every day, not just for perhaps those darker days.
And this quote touches on what Chris was saying about how important the mind is. The mind is its own place and in itself can make a heaven of hell a hell of heaven, which means that we are in control of our mind. We can either let it control us or we can be in control of it. And I talked through this quote with my Year 6 class and developed into a very, very interesting discussion about how a bad situation can be made good if we train our mind to think about the positive aspects within that. And one child said, and it stuck with me and I've thought about it a lot, is a situation stressful if I don't feel stressed? And I thought, well, no, it's not. Because the stressful situation is only because of the way you feel about it. And therefore, if we don't allow ourselves to be stressed by something, then it is no longer stressful. Obviously, what's difficult is if people around you are feeling stressed by that situation, that can then cling on to you and you can take on their feelings. But it's all about how we can train our mind to deal with the things that we find difficult. By focusing on the good things, by focusing on the positives, or by thinking about how actually maybe the stressful situation it's good that we're in that situation. And maybe sometimes we thrive on that stress. And if we twist it round to a positive, then it makes the situation better. In the same way, we can also make hell of heaven. We can also decide that a great situation is one that's not so good. So I could take this opportunity to be here, which is a fantastic opportunity, and I could twist it round and make it into something that I could have worried about for the weeks up to this because of standing in front of an audience. It's about twisting those situations and remembering that we can make a situation what it is. We don't need to let it control us. This is just a little bit more about how the mind and the brain works, and I'll pass over to Chris for this again.
Thank you, Athena. Just to return to that curriculum, although it's a mindfulness curriculum, it's also transdisciplinary. We touch on mindfulness, we also touch on little bits of positive psychology, little bits of CBT, but also little bits of neuroscience as well. And it's some of the neuroscience developments which are really fascinating. And I think in terms of the traditional orthodoxy, it was the idea that maybe the mind and the brain are the same, or maybe that the mind is the brain in action. But there's some really interesting developments in neuroscience that are taking that a step further. And I think the quite radical idea that we try to share with the students is the idea that you can use your mind to change your brain, to change your mind. And that idea of what they call self-directed neuroplasticity is incredibly powerful because it means we take a measure of control over what we think and therefore how our brain is structured, which in turn affects our health and well-being in that sense. And that's a really powerful idea, I think, in that sense. And I think what we try and do with our students, and I think, and with staff and with parents, I think, is the idea that maybe through doing this, we can change our relationship to our thoughts. And if we can do that, and if we can hold our thoughts in awareness and take in the idea that thoughts are just thoughts and not necessarily the truth of things, it's a very, very powerful statement to work with in terms of working with our students. What I would like to do is just share with you sort of a brief practice now that kind of touches on this idea of the mind and the brain. And one of the things we start with our students is we say, where is your mind? And of course, they go, it's here. Okay. And therefore, what I'm going to ask you to do just for kind of 2 minutes, in a spirit of curiosity and kindness, is just to join me in a short practice. So what I'd like you to do is to sit comfortably, sitting up straight, with your feet on the floor, maybe 6 inches apart, and to raise your hands out in front of you, maybe as if you were holding a basketball or holding a volleyball. Okay? And in a moment, I'm going to count down, 3, 2, 1, and then together we're going to clap 1, 2, 3. Okay? And then I would like you, so as hard as you can. So we're going to count down, 3, 2, 1, then clap, 1, 2, 3, and then I would like you to close your eyes. Are we ready? Okay, 3, 2, 1, 1, and then close your eyes, please. Thank you. And now what I would like you to do is just to draw your attention into your hands. Hold your attention in your hands. Be aware of any sensations that you're feeling. Perhaps a fizzing, maybe some pulsing sensations, a touch of pins and needles perhaps. Just be aware of any sensations you're feeling in your hands. Now let's see if we can zoom in. Can you zoom in and place your attention into your thumbs? First your left thumb, and then your right thumb. Can we zoom in a touch further, just into the very tip of your smallest finger on your left hand? Just be aware of any sensations. If there are no sensations, just be aware that there are no sensations. Just hold the moment, hold that sensation in full awareness. Now let us zoom out again. Place your attention in the whole of your hands. And perhaps ask yourself that question. Where is my mind now? Perhaps be aware of change. How do your hands feel now compared to just 1 minute, just 2 minutes ago, the start of our practice? Have those sensations changed? And when you feel ready, and being fully aware of the intention to do so, can you open your eyes and come back into the room? Okay, and you can lower your hands as well. Okay, thank you. And we use that as a simple tool to explain to the students that they can play with their attention, they can choose to place their attention anywhere they like. And we often talk about that as being the ability to anchor your mind, and we talk about this idea with the students that, you know, if you're in a period of extreme stress or you're under pressure, is rather than keeping your attention in your mind, can you drop your mind into your body and use your body as an anchor to bring about a real sense of calm and a sense of well-being. So, thank you for taking part in that so well.
By focusing our attention on one thing, it allows us to not have our attention on the things that are perhaps causing us anxiety. And that's what choosing to be in the present moment is about, because so many of our worries are linked to past experiences or are linked to things in the future that are likely to never happen. And if you just take a minute to think about some of the things that maybe in the past week or two you've worried about, if anything, and then have a think about whether those things actually were a reality. Were they worth worrying about in the end? And most people will find that they weren't. That we worry about things that haven't happened yet and actually will never happen. And one of the lessons that we do with the primary age children is about the storytelling mind and how we snowball things and things get bigger and bigger based on past experiences. And so choosing to be in the present moment means our mind is no longer focusing on the past or the present, but just focusing on what is happening right now. There are a lot of things in life that can cause stress and can cause anxiety. And one of the hardest things is calming the mind when it's a storm. It's much easier to calm the mind when life is going well and when we have no challenges or no struggles, which maybe doesn't happen as often as we'd like. But by training your mind to become more mindful, what it allows for is that we can then use those techniques, use those strategies when the mind is like a storm. So even if you feel that at the moment your life doesn't need it, it might be something that by practicing it now, in the future when you are going through a difficult situation and some challenges, you can then use that. Jon Kabat-Zinn is the leader in secular mindfulness. And over 30 years ago, he developed several mindfulness practices based on religious practices and some scientific research that he carried out to develop practices that he used with people with chronic illnesses. And it had outstanding effects. And he still now today leads things and has written several books that are very useful reads if you want an introduction to mindfulness. Over to Chris.
I smile when I say this. This is a bit about mindfulness and leadership. Okay, and I'm here with you just to share a couple of thoughts. And I think there's an increasing body of literature about how mindfulness supports really high quality leadership. And a measure of that is the commitment to mindfulness being made by so many cutting edge, perhaps rather more progressive organizations in that sense. And I think the easy answer is to say that mindfulness helps you to make better decisions. But if I can just touch on two things that are a bit deeper than that, I think, which reflect on us as individuals, as leaders, if you like. The first one is the idea that if we're able to hold moments in awareness, then we talk about the idea of responding rather than reacting to situations. You know, as a leader, you're placed in situations where you're required to work with lots of different staff groups in different situations to make very, very quick decisions sometimes in times of crisis. And mindfulness arguably gives you that ability sometimes to step back and to hold a moment and to hold a decision in awareness, which will support a more effective decision-making process. I think the second aspect, I think, is even more interesting possibly, is the idea that because mindfulness as an approach forces you to reflect on your own mind and on your relationship with your thoughts, it helps you to have a stronger sense of who you are and the process you go through to make decisions. Because if you understand how you make a decision and the thoughts that come into your mind and the way that you process those thoughts, it helps you to understand how you make decisions, and therefore you can make better decisions. I think it also gives you a cognitive toolkit to start to understand the members of your teams. That when you walk into a meeting, if you understand the way that cognitive processes work for your team members, you have a stronger sense of what they can bring to the table, how you can encourage them to respond rather than react, and how you can begin to develop that really effective consensus, whether it's through that foreshadowing in advance, maybe it's those small conversations sometimes, because you're aware of those issues, which mean that you can fine-tune your responses to individual situations. So I think that all sounds a little bit nebulous, but it's the idea that if you understand your relationship to your thoughts and the way that that works for your team members, you can fine-tune your individual responses, and day by day, minute by minute, it changes your interactions with your peers, which changes the broader outcomes for the organization.
And it's not a simple thing to train our minds, to change our brains, to change our mind. And this quote sums that up. It's about going over and over the path. You've got to keep practicing. You've got to keep doing it. Don't expect it to be something that suddenly, overnight, you're no longer reacting, you're only responding. But by thinking about it all the time in your daily life, it will help develop that. And what mindfulness does, what doing meditation or a breathing practice will do, is in simple terms, the way that I explain it to the primary school children, is it gives the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that can make decisions and can concentrate, space to override your amygdala, which is the part of the brain that does the flight, fight, or freeze. It's the immediate reaction. And so by doing a breathing exercise or by choosing to be in the present moment, you're slowing down the wavelengths of the brain to allow the prefrontal cortex and the other parts of the brain that are part of decision making to take over and to override the amygdala that, although there for a reason and can help us survive in many situations, almost can't think for itself. It overreacts and it can cause issues. And this is a light-hearted video that I'd like to share with you that shows somebody reacting rather than responding. This is something that, again, I show the children. And at this point, you're probably all thinking one thing. And that one thing you were thinking was either, who are these evil people filming when this child is clearly distressed and running around? And that's how I felt the first time I saw it. Apparently it's his siblings, not his parents, if that makes anybody feel better. But what that demonstrates is that our body immediately, or his body, went into flight mode. And I'm sure a lot of you were thinking, drop the food. And when I show it to the children at school, they're all shouting at the screen. You're much more subdued. They're all shouting, drop the food, drop the food. Because we can see that, because we're outsiders in that situation. But his amygdala has taken over, and it's telling him that he's in danger and he needs to run. And so what mindfulness does, what the mindfulness exercises can do, is they can give our brain the space to make a conscious decision, in which he could have said, actually, they're probably not going to hurt me, and they just want the food. So if I drop the food, then they will stop chasing me. In our busy lives, it's very difficult to take a lot of time out of our day to do mindfulness exercises. If you can find a large chunk of time, then that's fantastic. And often the times that, I know for me personally, the times that I feel I don't have time to sit and choose to be in the present moment are probably the times that I need to do that the most. And so part of it is the discipline of saying, actually, I'm going to take 40 minutes to just sit and be. Whether that's 40 minutes out of the time I could have been sleeping, or 40 minutes out of the time that I could be doing some planning or marking some children's books, and knowing that it will make me more productive when I then do my work. My sleep will be better. I'll have higher quality sleep, and then when I get back to my work, I can be more productive, and I will be more efficient. But for those times that you don't have time, there are several things that you can do just for a minute or two, like the focusing your attention in your hands. I'll show you one more exercise now that I'd like you to join me in, if that's okay. So if you sit again with your back straight and your feet firmly on the floor. And this is called the petal practice. And what we do is we use our hands and imagine that your hand is a flower. And the flower opens and the flower closes. And what's nice about this is you can also visualize that flower opening and closing. And that helps to calm the mind as well. But as we do it, what I'd like you to do is move your hand in time with your breathing. Try not to change your breath. Try to move your hand in time with your breath. So notice your breath and move your hand in time with it. You can either open your hand on an inhalation or on an exhalation, whichever feels more comfortable for you. So I invite you to close your eyes, if you'd like to, or revert your gaze to the floor. And when you feel ready on your next inhalation, begin moving your hand in time with your breath. And if you feel your mind beginning to wander, try and bring your mind back to focusing on your breath and your hand with kindness and curiosity. And when you feel ready, bring your attention back to the room by opening your eyes. That's something that can easily be done anywhere, because we're lucky that our breath is always with us. So by focusing on our breath, we've always got that there. And the movement of the hand can help to concentrate and focus that attention. Thank you very much for listening, and welcome any questions from you.
Morning. Thank you very much. I really enjoyed it. My question is, when did you start introducing this practice at BSM, integrating it into the curriculum, and what changes have you seen in the students?
I think we've in the spirit of mindfulness, we've probably dipped our toe into practice for kind of 2 or 3 years and done little bits, but I think we were conscious that in order to realize the benefits, we needed to be much more strategic in our approach, and therefore we invested in the staff training, and we've started to deliver the curriculum to roll that out across primary and senior. We've also done some work with parents in forums and also with staff. We started our induction days in August with 350 staff meditating in the hall, which was quite an experience, I think. So I think it's very early days, but I think the feedback we've had from all of the communities has been really, really positive. With the students, it's been interesting, I think. Would you agree that I think at first they're not quite sure what to make of it? You know, and we're kind of trying to make the case, but also introduce them to the practices. But I'm certainly doing it with Year 11s at the moment, and we're on kind of week 4 and week 5, and they're coming in, and it's a lesson. It feels different. You know, we ask them to remove their shoes. You know, this is not a normal lesson. This is an investment in your health and well-being, and they're starting to come to appreciate the time. Certainly, we can feel a difference from before and after the lesson in terms of what the experience gives them on a very deep level, I think.
I've been surprised at how much they want to do it, and how many of them have gone home and talked to parents about it, come back into school and said, oh, I was about to go onto the football pitch and I was nervous, and so I did a pause B, which is a name of one of the exercises. They're keen to do it, and they're noticing the value in it themselves, but it's something that will have impact over a longer amount of time. Hopefully it will impact their futures in adulthood rather than an immediate impact right now.
I think what we would hope is that some students will use it now, others will come back to it and perhaps add it to their toolkit, and they'll be aware that there's something they can draw upon. There's a reservoir of simple practices that can just make a difference day by day.
Okay, we're at the top of the hour. I see a couple of hands up. I think, Trevor, you're the next. I think you're okay. All right, then, Joanne, you have the final question then.
Thank you very much for this. I'm particularly interested in the early reactions of your staff as well, given that we are not in a similar environment, but we have mostly adults here who might benefit from this.
Yeah, and I think it was one of the conversations we had before was about how you embrace this as a community, if you like. And I think one of the things that is embodied in mindfulness is the idea that it's a choice. And lots of the teachers and trainers that we worked with over the summer said that, you know, organizations sometimes want to get there yesterday. And to some extent, this kind of reculturation is the work of years in that sense, and you want people to make a positive choice. And at the moment, so what we're asking people to do is to dip a toe into a range of mindfulness practices and to choose for themselves, if you like. And what we're hoping over time is that we will build up a critical mass of staff and parents and students, and therefore we have a common language in terms of some simple practices, and we have different ways of working with both taking in the good but also responding to certain situations involving stress and anxiety. You know, there are things like the meditation, and we've talked about the dot B and the pause B, so we can say to the students there are certain things that you can do in terms of adding to your toolkit. And I guess the challenge for ADB is all we're hoping to do this morning is to offer some prompts and to give a sense that we as BSM are beginning our journey, and this is a much bigger organization, and what the next steps might be for ADB moving forward, if that's something that you choose to embrace.